Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of What If Civilization Started Over. Today, in this episode, we will mostly be seeing colonization over in America, or North America, sorry. And yeah, so first event we will see, though, will be a war that starts from Carthage, actually. And Carthage hasn't done that much stuff at this point in the series because they've been more like, I don't know, like just unfocused on what everybody else is doing. But now they're actually getting back into the action with a very strong military, actually. Not top 10, probably like, or not even top 15, probably like actually more like top 20, to top 25. But anyways, this Libyan country is like probably top 40, 50th, like 40 to 50th in rankings. But anyways, these guys will go ahead and push far and fast into Libyan territory, and now we will see how much they will actually push into them as they end up just fully destroying the Libyan country. So, now we will have to see a peace treaty in which they will fully annex the Libyan country. So, they just got probably twice as big and like 30% stronger, I'd say. But yeah, now they look pretty big. And in fact, these shoe colors look way too similar. So I'm gonna change it to more of a like that. Yeah. And now what we will actually see is some countries over here expanding, such as the Detroit country, which will go ahead and take over all of these lands, and then they will go up here to take over all of these lands. And also, let me fix that. So, yeah, this is the new borders of the Detroit country, or sorry, Michigan country. But anyways, we will go ahead and see the pink Mexicans push into these regions of land. And the pink Mexicans, even though they got very, very crippled and they're a lot weaker than these guys, they are stronger than Detroit and these guys. It's Michigan. I'm just gonna call them Detroit. I keep calling them Michigan. But yeah. So now we will be seeing a war. A war that will be against these guys, the pink Mexicans, as, what could they even do? This is just free land for Red Mexico, and they will just easily get the win, as they quickly take over the important lands and then go around the border so no other country can take any land. And then I will go back because I like this color, and then I'll do that, and then boom, and then also boom. So now these guys are a lot bigger and a lot stronger. And in fact, what if they just go like boom and boom? They could probably do that and become so overpowered. And genuinely they could. They really, really could. But anyways, we will see this country that, or color that was just being used for Red Mexico actually be used somewhere else, which is actually over here in Crimea, which is where there will be a rebellion out of Russia. And so these guys quickly go ahead and take these lands, and then they're like, we'll peace out. We'll just peace out. And so let's go ahead and see this peace treaty. So this is the borders of the new pink Crimean country, and yeah, I do think this color did look better over here. And you know what? Just because I think that, now, obviously these guys are not becoming the same country, but yeah, anyways. So, also, this red color is the same exact color as Rome, so I will also have to change that. And yeah, so I will change that and then go here and make it a little darker than Rome. Okay, and now, anyways, on to the colonizing. And wow, this looks a lot different. I think I low-key liked it better before, but it already happened. So anyways, we will go ahead and see what every country wants in this. And so now we see what every country here wants. As we see that the Mexican country wants these lands right here. The Texans want these areas and this, while the pink French country wants land from the Texans and over here, while the Germans want all of these lands and the Irish want all of these lands. And then the Hokkaidans want this, and then the Brazilians want that, and also the Californians want that. So, let's go ahead and see everybody get what they want. As we see, the Texans actually be the ones to get these areas, as well as that, because otherwise it would look bad. Because, yeah. And then we will then see the pink French get those lands, and then we will also see these guys get the lands they wanted, and the Irish get the lands that they wanted. Let's see, did that mess up anything? No, it does not seem like it did. So, I see that as a success. And then the Hokkaidans will go ahead and do that, and that. And so, this is now how, how North America looks like. And now, let's go ahead and see what happens to the rest of these areas. And now we see the second last peace treaty of the North American colonies. As we see the Brazilians gain all of these lands, the Californians gain a tiny amount of land, the Mexicans will gain that, then this part right here will go over to these guys, the Texans, and then right here, this is disputed between the pink French and the Texans, so it will be split around perfectly down the middle, kinda, not fully, that's why I said kinda perfectly, not fully perfectly. And then Hokkaido will get this spot of land. And now we see how many countries are basically cut off from expanding any further, as we see the Hokkaidans done, the Californians probably done, Texans also done, and then the Mexicans, their borders would look really weird if they continued, so I don't think they will. So let's go ahead and see one more peace treaty. And so now this will be the final peace treaty of the North American colonies. As we see, pink France get all of those lands, Mexico gets that, Brazil will get that, and then Germany will end up getting that. So now we see all of these colonies and countries and how they look now. And yeah, so now we will be looking elsewhere, as we will actually be going down to this Indian colony because, well, they are a new colonial empire and they cannot hold it. Let me tell you that. So let's go ahead and see what happens to them. And so this is the peace treaty for what happened to the Indian colony, as we see that this country that was here actually joined up with the Brazilians. Then a few provinces decided to join up with the Portuguese colony. And then this province joined with the Galicians. Then these three new nations appeared, as this is Ecuador, this is Peru, and this is, I guess, northern Chile. And anyways, let's give them capitals. The Chileans, I don't know, get their capital. Then the Peruvians and the Ecuadorians will also get their capitals. And I also gotta remove this real quick. And what? Okay, there we go. And so, yeah, that is what happens. And now we will actually go over to a new area that we haven't looked at today, and that is over here. Now, there has been a ton of stuff happening in this region, but as we see, it feels like kind of empty in a way, even though there's a lot of big countries in this area. But it feels empty because, well, there's not enough countries, is how I feel about it. And so, what will happen is, well, a few things that I don't know, because I'm thinking about it. And we will actually see the first thing that happens is these guys, the beige Chinese, will actually invade the country of Myanmar. Surprise, right? Yeah, it is. I agree. But anyways, these guys will quickly be taking a major city, and then we will also see them be able to push even more deep into this country. And yeah, so this is currently what it looks like, and it is not looking too good for these guys. In fact, the next thing that will happen is another invasion over here by Thailand. And their goal is just to take a lot of these lower regions, as they have invaded into these few regions over here, as these are the lands that they want. And then we will go over to the orange country over here and see them take the lands that they want, which is kind of like this, but more kind of like that, as that is actually what it looks like, and Thailand is now actually correct. But there will now be another war starting. During that war, that is Vietnam versus this kind of Hong Kong country, even though I know it isn't at Hong Kong. Hong Kong's like right here. So yeah. Yeah. And we will see the Vietnamese, who are barely stronger than the orange country, quickly push into these regions, as they are looking to cut them off and end up making them look more like this. and low-key, Thailand will just take that. If anything, they just take it. But now we will actually see a large portion of land getting their independence. Yeah, getting their independence, not fighting for it, which means it's being peacefully given. So, we will see all of the Philippines end up getting independence, and then seeing this, the Taiwanese will also want independence and ask for independence, which the Chinese will give, but that's the last country that they'll give independence to for at least a while. So, let's go ahead and see where the Filipino capital is, which is right there, and then the Taiwanese capital is right there. So we do now see even more crippled China, but this was them that chose to do that. So it's not really them crippling themselves. It's them making what they think is the right choice for themselves. But anyways, we will go ahead and see something actually pretty big happening. That's a rebellion in Korea. Now, not in like the Korean peninsula areas, but in the Korean areas. But yeah, so let's go ahead and see where it starts. And this will not really have a starting location. It will just happen in like all of the north. And no country is aiding this. So yeah, just so you know. But we instantly see all of these lands end up just saying, okay, we want independence, and we know you're gonna give it to us. And Korea's like, sure, fine, whatever, as that's really all they can do. But now, this country is actually in a really bad position, because now they could just be taken over by these guys, which actually would be likely since their capital is so close to them, or the Mongols. Now, what country will actually be the one to start invading them? Well, actually, if you said the base Chinese, you'd be correct. And yeah, we will now start seeing them invade into the pink Korean country, as they are not that strong, but the base Chinese do see some value in taking over this country. And so, they will end up fully taking these lands, as you can see here by the full annexation, and they actually just got a decent amount stronger because now they're also a lot more protected by how far their capital is away from other countries now. And right here in this area, it's like impossible to get through unless you're like a trading ship. And in fact, all trading ships would probably go to that major city instead of to the capital. So they have a really good spot for their capital, as it would be very, very hard for any country to end up attacking them right in the capital, or near the capital in fact, because when they took these lands, they said to Korea, hey, so we're gonna control this area now, okay? And they said, sure, I guess. So, yeah. And now, there will be, actually, a rebellion again, but in a different country. It's gonna be these guys, the True That United. And in fact, this will have 4 rebellions. Yeah, so it went from True to 1 to 4. Pretty crazy. And anyways, now let's go see what will happen. And actually, it's not much because, well, it wasn't a rebellion, was it? That happened too fast. You're right, it wasn't a rebellion. It was an invasion. But by who? By who? Was it the Pakistanis? Yeah, it was. And we will see the lands that they get, as they actually just staged it as a rebellion. It was all of their troops that were just flooding into these areas. And yeah, so we will end up seeing them take over these lands. And then we will also see the yellow country end up taking that. And so this is the new borders over here. And as you can see, every country around Pakistan probably does not like them right now because they actually committed some atrocities in that country. So we will in fact start seeing an invasion happen against the Pakistanis, starting over here, where the Oman country lost actually a friend of theirs. And in fact, they will be bringing this country back. Now, I don't fully remember what color they were, but now they're just going to be this color. So, they will end up getting that, and I'm pretty sure they extended up to Qatar. So real quick, let me show that. And yeah, so pretty much this is what they look like. And I'm pretty sure that one spot wasn't a province of the UAE. So this is what these guys look like. And anyways, the Oman country will end up making the trade that they were going to make before the Pakistanis invaded, which was these areas for some other areas down in the south. And why do I keep calling them Oman? They're Yemen. In fact, pretty much all of their Oman land just got taken in this trade, as that's really what their trade was going to be before. And yeah, they just stuck with that. And so this is now what these countries look like. And yeah, so now we will see an invasion over here by the Persians, one of the strongest countries in the world, into Pakistan. And mainly in this area, which is because they've been actually wanting those lands for a while. But now also you will see India push in and invade the Pakistanis. And seeing the Indians make a spearhead over here, the Persians will help them out in that and eventually cut them off from these northern areas, which will actually probably be fully taken over by the Persians. And now this falls. So let's go ahead and see a peace treaty. And so this is the peace treaty of what happens to Pakistan as they do lose around 3 provinces to Persia, which I think might have all had some major cities, as well as a few provinces by India, I think 2. But anyways, Persia in the north took a lot of land, so now they're actually one of the bigger countries in the world. But now we will actually go over here to the Turkish nation and the Egyptian nation, who formed last episode by revolting against both Great Ankara and the Grand Legion. So, over here, they will actually not do anything. Instead, they are looking at potentially uniting. Yeah, uniting. So, let's go ahead and see what that might look like. And I'm actually going to make this color a little brighter. Like that. And they are actually going to unite into the Turkish Egyptian Sultanate. So this is actually a very strong nation in the middle of the world. In fact, they might even add these 2 countries into it if they ask them to, as they're very good allies with each other. But anyways, there will be a big thing happening, and this thing happening is very, very big, as well, there's actually tensions rising between the Sultanate and the Great Legion of Mesopotamia, which is these guys. And so yeah, we will end up seeing what will happen right now, as we will actually start to see a new alliance form over here. And actually, let me erase this alliance, because it no longer exists. That was just for against these guys once, and they lost. And so, we will now see what these guys look like, as they will, or this alliance looks like, as they will be one of the strongest alliances, obviously, because there's only one other one, but also, even if there was more, they'd be one of the strongest. And currently it consists of 4 nations: Adriatica, Greece, Bulgaria, and the Sultanate. Now, these guys will be adding 2 more members actually, which is Oman and the UAE, as well as Caucasia and Crimea. So it's like all countries that surround the Grand Legion of Mesopotamia, or Great Legion of Mesopotamia, sorry. And in fact, we will now see the Great Legion's alliance form, as this will consist of these 2, Russia, because they got that taken away, Rome, because they lost that, and Romania, well, obvious reasons. And then we will see, actually, an absolute idiot join Pakistan, because, well, since Pakistan joined, that's just gonna lead to a different country joining that goes by the name of, well, Persia. Not on their side. On the side of these guys. And Persia, if we look over here, is the sixth strongest country in the world, right behind the Great Legion. And Russia is the fourth strongest. So there's actually some pretty, it's it'll be very hard for them, for the Sultanate's team to win. But in fact, we will see this alliance will decide to merge with the Circle Military Alliance, as the Circle Military Alliance will end up joining the side of the Sultanates, which will make them a lot stronger against the Great Legion. And in fact, we're going to see Galicia join. Portugal joins. And then we will see Azerbaijan join. We will see these guys join as they teamed up with Rome. And then we will also see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 countries join this war on the side of the Great Legion. Now, these countries are more trying to make a distraction for the rest of these African nations, as well they'll have to deal with all of these guys, all 8 of them, and in fact these guys will decide to join the war. When they do that, we will see the Moroccans join. Oh, also Carthage joined on that side. So did the Sudanese. Now, actually, a friend of the Great Legion will join this war, which is these guys, and 3 surprising nations: Scandinavia, Estonia, and Poland. Now, seeing this, and knowing that these shore ops, Germany, one of the strongest countries in the world, will join the war. In fact, Germany is the 9th strongest country in the world. So, we will also have to see Brazil join and Guatemala join, who are actually side by side in the rankings at 10th and 11th. So, yeah, this side is getting pretty strong. How will they end up being able to win this? Well, actually, we're going to see a whole nother alliance form, which will be the Rectangle Alliance. Let me move that. As this alliance will be between a ton of strong nations, such as these guys. Now, we can obviously tell that all of the nations in the Square Alliance are Asian countries. Now, these guys aren't particularly in the war against, a single alliance. That's why they're not on one of the other sides. So, in fact, realizing this, we will see 2 countries, two countries leave because they didn't realize that, and then they will join the side that they want to be on, as they thought they just were making their own alliance to fight the Diamond Alliance. But before this war starts, we will actually go ahead and see this war continue. Now notice, none of the Oceanian countries decided to join, while every other continent has at least one country. Why is this? Well, this is because I forgot to add the Philippines and the Papua New Guinea country and Java into this war. So, yeah, the three strongest Oceanian countries just joined the war on the side of the triangles. Now, I'd say that these two sides are actually pretty balanced in terms of amount of countries, but I'd probably give a slight edge to the triangles because, well, there's more countries on the side of the triangles in it. And yeah, so now let's go ahead and see what will happen over here as we will continue to see the Chinese push in and take land. And in fact, it gets so bad that these are the only lands Morocco is left with, which get taken over, obviously. And then this is basically just a stalemate. They'll say, sure, we'll peace out. And guess what? What I said became true. Thailand did take those areas. And in fact, this will not even go over to Thailand. But this will go to these guys. And then we see these shoe spots go over to the beige Chinese because I said so. And then over here, the beige Chinese were like the main leader of this war, so that's why they get the most land. But yeah. And then we will start seeing all of the land that Thailand gets, which actually, if beige China ended up reaching to here, that'd be pretty crazy. But anyways, we would see that the beige Chinese will not connect up with the Indian Ocean. In fact, Thailand just barely cuts them off, but thing is, beige China didn't want access over here. Or, over to the Indian Ocean. So real quick, let me go grab the color of Myanmar. And now let me go back. And we will now see the lands that these guys get to keep, which actually is a little more than half, as we will now see what the Thailand country will take. In fact, I don't even think it's like half of the land that they keep. It might be, oh wait, no, I think it's a little bit more, actually. Yeah, I think it is. So, these are the borders, the new borders over here, as Myanmar did come before the Thai country did, but the Thai country ended up just getting way too strong when they rebelled from Malaysia with all of this. And then they took out these two countries. because Vietnam wanted to save that country that was there, but these guys didn't. And then they were able to just take that and then lead the charge against these guys. So, we will now see the base Chinese country get their lands. And so, yeah, this is now what the Chinese look like. Very stretched, I'd have to say. In fact, if they low-key wanted to, they could take these guys and become the strongest country in the world. Yep, they could do that. But they could also take it a step further and take over Korea, which would definitely make them the strongest country in the world. So now what are they going to do on their kind of imperial conquest that they're having? Invade the Orange Country. Yep. And now it kind of looks like they're surrounding a nation. But I can't tell what nation that is. We'll just have to find out. Why did I just turn on the alliance layer? Was that me? Oh yeah. Because the pink Chinese are joining the Diamond Alliance. It makes sense now. Okay. And, in fact, not all of this land will go over to the base Chinese. The pink Chinese will actually take most of it because, well, they're allowed to. Because, well, if base China actually took it, they'd probably just collapse on the spot because of how spread out their land would be then. As they stretch from, like, this area up here. No, in fact, the Sea of Japan all the way down to the South China Sea. Which, that's a pretty big area that you'd have to cover. But anyways, we're actually gonna see something happen. The Mexicans. I told you that you were gonna expand yourself way too much. So, we will be seeing the two countries named Texas and California start to invade Mexico in their recently taken lands. And then, when they reach around this, they'll say, peace, peace, peace. We know you can't defeat us. Mexico says, why does this always happen? It really doesn't, Mexico. It really doesn't. Not to you, anyways. More like to a country in Europe by the name of Rome. I feel like it might happen to them more. By might, I mean it does. But now these two countries will end up connecting, or this border will end up being finished and looking like so. And yeah, that looks ugly. Time to change it. Anyways, we will go ahead and see the rest of these lands going over to California, which took most of the land that was taken, because they took most of that land that was taken, obviously, Otherwise, why would I say that they took most of the land taken? Because they took most of the land taken, you know? And so, these are the new borders over here. And as we can see, looks like there's kind of two big American countries forming. Huh? Why did Texas just take over that? Totally not foreshadowing. Because I'm literally not. That will not happen. Anyways, we will go ahead and see the Californian color change a little. Because we will go ahead and see the rest of these lands going over to California, which took most of the land that was taken, because they took most of that land that was taken, obviously. Otherwise, why would I say that they took most of the land taken? Because they took most of the land taken, you know? And so, these are the new borders over here. And as we can see, looks like there's kind of two big American countries forming. Huh? Why did Texas just take over that? Totally not foreshadowing. Because I'm literally not. That will not happen. Anyways, we will go ahead and see the Californian color change a little, because I wanted it to. And now we will go ahead and see the start of World War II. And this is started by the Sultanate, obviously, who will be fighting head-on the great region of Mesopotamia. And we will actually see this war start in two spots of the Sultanate, as it will start over here, where they quickly take this major city and this major city. So, yeah, or actually, they just took over three major cities. And in fact, the Great Legion, they're kind of boxed in after losing these lands. In fact, their navy fumbled and ended up letting these guys take over all of the Mediterranean coastline. So now they are just continuing to push in these areas, as well as more on their actual front line against the Mesopotamians. And yeah, so we will actually see them go ahead and push fully on the entire front line over here, and on the entire front line over here into the Great Legion of Mesopotamia. So they will have a very big head start because of how big of a amount of front line they just gained, as these guys were really not ready. But we will see the first area where the Diamond Alliance will strike. which is actually over here in Crimea, which will pretty much just instantly get cooked until, obviously, it comes down to actually Crimea, which is holding out a lot. Like, a lot. So much, in fact, that the Caucasians are even starting to push back right over here. And these guys will actually even start their own invasion. Not a big one, a small one, but it works. And now we will see the Azerbaijanis start to invade the Caucasians. And yeah, that will not go too good for the Caucasians until we will actually see the Persians, who are like 5 times stronger than the Azerbaijanis, end up taking that in this, and then, well, thinking of how it's gonna go. It's just so easy for Persia recently. Like, their military in the Pakistani war, fabulous. And as soon as they saw their current ally over here being invaded, they were like, yep, no, we're coming in, don't worry, bud. And so we will end up seeing them make their entire front line against Russia be filled out. In fact, they take a major city. And so it's quickly looking like it's turning against Russia. Oh, and an area where it's very compact of Diamond Alliance members, while Europe, as we see over here, we have 8. We got 8 members of the Diamond Alliance in Europe, while we have like around, actually I think we have 8, but it's a lot more spread out, while these guys are a lot closer to each other. And the Russians are occupied, so they're not going to send troops over to Germany yet, which allows for Germany to quickly get rid of an easy opponent. And then we will also see them start their invasion into Rome, which is also something that they did not too long ago. And then the Greeks are like, yep, we're right behind you. We got you. And they take out Rome. Like that. Now, the reason Rome and the other Italian country fell so fast was because they're not that strong. Now, you'd expect Rome to be strong by their area, but currently they're not that strong at all. And in fact, we will start to see more countries start to fall because Rome couldn't hold out for long enough. So you see Adriatica end up invading these guys, so they can start going like that. By that, I mean making an entire invasion on the Russians. And then after they make their invasion on the Russians, they're gonna sneak up here from the north into Romanian lands. And that will actually surprise them, because they had all their troops lined up over here, in fact, invading a little. But after this happens, they will actually end up fully retreating, which Adriatica had this as mostly just a distraction so they could make their actual invasion into these regions, but now they've actually connected it up. So, since they connected it up, it's going to be a lot harder for Romania to push them out of their land. And, don't forget about Bulgaria, bro. Because Bulgaria's out for revenge, and have been for so long. Even if they haven't been able to, they're doing it now, for sure. If you can see right here, they just made an insane push that just now gets pushed back. But that comes at also a big cost at how they were defending against the Greeks and the Adriatians. So the Greeks will push up to right here before they're just gonna end up just making it so it's really hard to push into Bulgaria anymore. And Adriatica is gonna end up encircling this major city. And that major city falling, also Romania's third last major city that was remaining in falling, basically spells the end for Romania in this war. Because, Russia just arrived. And Russia, you better hurry up, because that might be too late. And they actually ended up stopping invading Crimea in order to save Romania, because they knew if Romania died, the foothold in Europe would be a lot less. But, in fact, Crimea will fully push the Russians out of their land. And now is where the Russians and the Romanians will start to push back the Adriaticans. In fact, so much to the point where it's them being invaded, like Greece, Bulgaria, and Adriatica will all start to be invaded. So, Adriatica over here, quickly losing these two major cities. And then Greece here, which these guys just dove down to the coast for a better foothold. And now, the Bulgarians will lose those lands very fast. And now, we have to see how the Sultanates or Greeks will respond to this. The Sultanates will send the amount of aid they can without losing any progress. So this will end up making these two be able to push back a little. And then, in fact, the Adriaticans will send half of their army into Greece to push back the Russians. And then the Greeks will send half of both of, all of the Adriatic army they just got sent into Bulgaria to attack over there. And then, they also had sent 50% of their army. And they did this because, they were getting pushed so much that if the Greeks and Bulgarians weren't able to survive, they'd be cooked. They'd just be cooked. But now, every single one of these countries has gotten most of their land back. And in fact, Adriatica slowly but surely, is pushing out the Russians, as the Russians are staying in this one area. But yeah, now, a big thing that's happening is the Germans are now making their advances into Poland, as this will go very successfully because, well, the Russians are not focused on this area. And technically, the Scandinavians, Polish, and Baltics are basically just puppets of Russia. But yeah, Germany basically just took over this. In fact, they're gonna say, no, we just actually fully annexed Poland, or not fully annexed, but we are going to take a ton of land. So, that's what you get, they say to the Russians. And that annoys the Russians, as they know they will not be able to stop them from actually taking over Poland. But yeah, so they're annoyed about that. And this is kind of what the Germans want to be, but not really. But anyways, we will now see a different front over here, as these areas are not doing too good of a job at fighting these three African guys back. Yeah, no, the three African countries that are like best friends back. They're having a very hard time doing said thing. And in fact, these guys, not fully just them, but like the allies helped them take out both of those countries. And so we will now see the green guys start to push into the purple one, the purple country, which will instantly lose all of their land. And then these guys will lose all of that. And then the Moroccans will take the rest of it. As the reason why I just made all of those countries fall so fast, it make it seem really unrealistic. So that'd be actually realistic, because those countries, I'm sorry, but do not stand a single chance. In fact, if they even tried to invade, they'd probably invade themselves, because they know they'd just lose anyways. So yeah, Carthage is focusing over here when they don't have to. So they decide to actually just tell the Moroccans to invade these areas. So the Moroccans do that, and they will make fast success in invading these lands. And in fact, they will even start making the spearhead to the capital. And in fact, they're gonna take the capital. And this happened in a matter of probably 2 months, that invasion. Now, what else happened in 2 months? Well, we see India over here invading Pakistan, and then, which this goes very easily because, well, the Pakistanis just got very, very crippled by the Persians. And yeah, so now the Siberians, with only one country to attack, will start to invade the Russians with very fast success, as the Russians aren't really trained for fighting in these regions. Well, let me tell you, the Siberian army is very well trained in fighting in these areas. So we see them take over all of that in a matter of weeks, actually. And they're just going to keep on invading into these areas. In fact, they will invade into all of that. And yeah, so they just took out a large amount of land from the Russians, and the Russians realized, well, now we have to send all of, or most of our troops over here to deal with that, and also down here to deal with this, while also having to send troops to this spot and over here in order to, well, obviously save Romania, save these three countries that are on their side, fight back these guys, and fight back the Persians and Germans. So that will be very hard for them, and in fact, they will first off focus on trying to get these guys right here. Get these guys back under their control, which will go pretty fast, and very fast actually, not just pretty fast, because they are just trying to push back as much as they can right now. So they're like overextending all of their troops. And in fact, they think trying to blitzkrieg in a very weird way like this, like trying to make kind of webs, I guess. And yeah, so they are like very quickly taking out these Siberian areas. But at this point, they're focusing like 75% of their troops at Siberia. And seeing that their ally is being attacked, the yellow, I guess, Kazakh country will start to invade the Russians. And so this will just keep going worse and worse for these guys, as the Kazakhstanis, or I'll just call them the Kazakhs, are actually really good at making spearheads. One of the best in the world at this. And in fact, they're gonna reach up to this lake, which was actually their goal. They were trying to spearhead to that lake. As if we just look real quick, that's a massive spearhead. Now, what does Russia do? Well, they're gonna try and slowly push in on both sides, obviously, as that's like the main thing that they could do right now. And the Kazakhs actually know that they're getting encircled, but they're not trying to flee back because they know that it's a trap. So they end up just being cut off right there. And then the Russians will sweep out that. So now they're going to continue pushing into these areas, but the Kazakhs just make a massive, like, stop. But anyways, an area that the Germans can't really focus on over here in Detroit, the Detroit country, they will start losing land fast. And that's why they are calling upon one of their North American allies that just so happen to border the said country, aka the Michigan country, or sorry, the Detroit country, or whatever, you know? Yeah. And so we'll end up seeing these guys start to throw themselves at the Detroit country as they were just waiting. They were waiting for the second that the Germans called them in. And so, yeah, it's like, it's cooked for the Detroit country. In fact, I'm just gonna do the picture of what happens to the Detroit country right now because it doesn't even take that long. This picture is a full annexation. Yeah, full annexation. So they are becoming really big and strong. Anyways, going to another area in the world, which has a name that goes by Africa. So, the countries in Africa are actually doing pretty good in terms of this alliance, not the other alliance, because, well, this alliance is just built different. Literally, like, none of these countries that decided to help out the Great Legion in Africa are going to survive. It's just like, they are not in strong areas for like strong development at all. But the Blue Nigerians, the Ivory Coast country, and the Green Saharan country, they are all like in pretty good spots. Now the Green Saharan country is strong because of how many people live there and the important areas that they found in, well, or the Pink French found in those areas. So yeah. Anyways, the entire African front, besides over in the Great Legion, has been taken care of. And now, there will be one more thing happening in this episode. This could be bigger than the Grand Legion merging with the Great Ankarans, as these countries have had an even stronger bond with each other than the Great Ankarans and Grand Legion. So, real quick, let me tell you, it is not the Oman country and the Ethiopians uniting. It is not these two countries uniting. It's even not these two uniting. It's, well, the Galicians and the Portuguese. They will be uniting. Now, the color they choose will determine what country wins in a little brawl. So, the leaders of these two countries, let me take it off of the alliance layer. The leader of the Portuguese country, Christ Ronald, and the leader of the Galician country, Lion Messi, will be playing a match of football or soccer in against each other, a one-on-one, and whatever country wins this will be the country that the color will be against. So, Chris Ronald will actually act fast, gaining one goal And it's actually the first to 3 goals wins. But then Lionel Messi will end up making a big advancement over here. And they also got a goal. But now we will see Cristiano Ronaldo getting his second goal. Then right after, blocking what everybody thought would be a guaranteed goal. And then Cristiano Ronaldo gets his third goal. And in fact, I like this color more. No, I do not. I really don't. I changed my mind. So, we now have Portugal and Galicia uniting to become what they call what they call the United Country, the United, hold on, what are their ideologies real quick? The Democratic Unity of Iberia. They will be the Democratic Peoples of Iberia. And in fact, Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo are actually becoming co-leaders of this country, as neither of them are fully really giving away their position as the leader. They're just uniting. So they're actually now going to move their capital to, I'd say, probably combined between every country that has ever been in Iberia. It's their most historic city in all of Iberia, right here. So that will be their capital. I just realized they should still have their leaders. They should not. So, out of these 3 countries, Theon Flynn is the leader of New York. The leader of this Mexican country is Judd Pullen, and Guatemala is John Vin, while California is Amai Nodi, and Texas is Sean Anto. And all of these are just random names I came up with. So, as we see, this Green Saharan country's leader's name is Polo Pierre Pietras V. Now, if we go over to these guys, the Ethiopians, Dwayne Johnson. Sounds familiar? Well, you're probably thinking of Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, which is literally what it's based off of. Anyways, we will now also go over here to these guys. Anabulo Fenitrius Demai Alko is the leader of Tibet, and the leader of an occupied Pakistan is Jebediah John Joe. Now, I think the next leader I will show might just have the best name known to mankind. Persia's leader's name is Bob the Third. Oh, and also Oman's leader's name is A.K. Styles. And the Great Legion's leader is Markiplier. Wow, Greece has Isaac Newton. And Rome had Jackie Jackie. Pink France has Jimothy Bobothy. We're not going to talk about Germany. They have Adolf Hitler, who is actually the good version of a certain Austrian painter. And now we will see what the leader of Adriatica's name is, Michael Jackson. And we've got Isaac Newton over here, obviously, like I said. And we have Joseph Stalin to rival Adolf Hitler. I'm so funny for coming up with those great names. Now, the yellow country has their leader's name as Gerald LeMayo. And, Mongolia has Ronald McDonald. Actually, not Ronald McDonald, Ronald McDonald. So yeah, just a quick bit of information about a lot of leaders of countries' names. So yeah, and now we will be seeing one more thing happen in this. And it's not this. I promise I will do this after this episode. So what will be happening is actually these guys are gonna start following down the Nile. And yeah, and they are going to surround this lake, taking a major city pretty quickly, and then they will keep following down this lake until they meet up with the Sudanese, which will be taking these lands, and they will be controlling those areas. So, the Egyptians can actually focus on the rest. So kind of. But now that this area is cut off from literally any country that might help them, or countries that might help them have already been taken over, yeah. So, yeah, they just instantly lose that, which will weaken them a good amount, but they do have a good amount of land left. Now, do they have a good amount of allies left? Well, real quick, let's go ahead and look at that. As it's currently, well, there hasn't even been one country on the side of the triangles that has fallen yet. But there has been 5, 6, 8, 12, 14, 15, actually 16 countries on the side of the Great Legion have been fully taken over. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that this war is not going to end soon. In fact, it might not end for the next few episodes. Now, I am pre-recording this. It's probably going to be May 15th when you see this, maybe. And I'm recording it on the 17th of April. But now we see, I just did the wrong shape. So now we see 3 countries actually joining the side of the Great Legion. As you wouldn't expect the Thai country to join the side of the Great Legion. You'd expect them to join the other side. Well, they got bribed, and so did Malaysia. And these guys, And every other country in Oceania got bribed. And in fact, we will now go over here and see pretty much all of Africa end up joining this war. Why? Well, they actually want most of the African nations want the country of the Great Legion to win this. With the sole exception of, I guess, an African superpower right now, being Lesotho. Oh, and Madagascar. So, these are all of the new countries that just joined the war. And so, this will be very hard for now the actual side of the Sultanate to win in Africa. Seeing how many new countries there are in Africa that joined the war. But we can't forget the second strongest country in the world is in the war, and so is the first strongest, and the third strongest, and the fourth strongest. So yeah, the first, second, third, and fourth strongest countries are all in this war. Now, who are these countries? First place is actually the Democratic Peoples. The Democratic Peoples, no, the Democratic People's Republic of Iberia is number one. The Democratic People's Republic of the People's Democratic Republic of Iberia is number one. Number two, India. Number three, Mongolia. Four actually is probably Pink France, not Russia. And so, yeah. And then we also have number 6, the Great Legion, 7, Persia, 8, Ethiopia, 9, Tibet, 10, Germany, 11, Brazil, 12, Guatemala, 14, New York, and 2 other countries, Adriatica and Base China, 15 and 16, are also in this war. So, every single country in the top 16, besides for one country, Pink France, is in this war. But yeah, that will be all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.